Chapter 9: The Laws of Existence. The central idea of this book revolves around the laws of existence. I propose in this chapter, if you rush to this chapter directly, tempted by the title of this book, I encourage you to start reading from chapter 4 onward. Anyway, my ideas have developed alongside Darwin's theory, and to develop these laws, I owe my insights to my research on toxin-antitoxin systems, my clarity of thinking to Richard Dawkins' lectures, my courage of thinking to Christopher Hitchens, and so many debaters. However, the inspiration to write this book, though, comes from Alfred Russel Wallace, who said, "It is unfortunate that while we both developed the theory of natural selection, I am not as well known as Darwin, because he was the one to publish a comprehensive book on the subject on the origin of species, while I only presented my ideas in a paper." Despite the daunting nature of writing a book, battling chronic anxiety, acute imposter syndrome, and constant struggles with my introverted nature, I have persevered and devoted the past 5 years to bringing this work to fruition. Wallace's words pushed me to explore what writing a book can achieve. I must say that writing a book was the most ridiculous idea worth pursuing. The book grew in me, and I grew with it. Back in 2015 or so, when I was deeply engrossed and troubled in understanding the propagation of toxin-antitoxin systems encoding genes, I will not delve into the scientific details of the research, but my exploration of toxin-antitoxin systems hit me with an existential crisis on multiple fronts. The difficulties in the research include questions about how science has become a game of numbers at the cost of truth and the nature of toxin-antitoxin systems itself. Research on toxin-antitoxin systems made me delve into selfish DNA, leading to Professor Richard Dawkins and the debates on rationality, religion, and society. Since then, I have become different in my personal, professional, and social spheres. This transformation occurred through a mix of tough times, including immense depression, peaks of obsessive-compulsive disorder, and the terminal illness of my father. I will elaborate a bit on the influence of scientific inquiry into toxin-antitoxin genes. These genes, which supposedly do not contribute any fitness to the host genome, are propagating and present in most bacterial genomes, often in multiple numbers. How are these genes propagating? Without a means, mind, or purpose? Humans propagate as all living organisms do, and so do these genes, though with minimal complexity. Transposons, the jumping genes, are a better example of active propagation within the genomes. What is the purpose of their propagation? Did someone design the propagation of these entities? And if so, why? If not, why propagate? The mind becomes empty, blank, and numb. What if there is no creator and no purpose? That is the only question that paves a new path to start afresh, to refill the mind, a path based on bare philosophy, seeking truth with no strings and fear. For me, I transitioned from a researcher to a philosopher. This whole book, and even the idea of writing a book, has come from the mentioned psychological toils and tolls. The last sentences of my PhD thesis are shown below. Based on my research and philosophical contemplation, I initially formulated 3 postulates. I, the stable will stay. 2, the reproducing one will be prevalent. And the evolving will last. As I kept contemplating, the 3rd law did not seem right. When we say something evolved, we mean that a species is no longer the same. The identity has changed. Although the entity exists, its identity has changed. Brooding long enough on this problem led me to account for the existence of all things, change, and identity, each of which has become a chapter of this book. The breakthrough came with the thought experiments on the ship of Theseus. The proposed laws are primarily derived from the ship of Theseus, from the chapter on identity. This chapter on existence should indeed be viewed in the backdrop of change. Existence, evolution, and extinction. The universe is in a perpetual state of change, with matter constantly forming and being consumed to create new entities. The duration of an entity's existence is determined by how it occupies space over time while maintaining a persistent identity. Some entities last for a brief moment, such as a floating bubble, while others, like the Murchison meteorite, are estimated to have existed for around 7 billion years. However, all entities eventually lose their matter and become part of their environment. They degrade and transform in accordance with the laws of physics, with the rate of change often influenced by their thermodynamic state relative to the environment. Entities can exist, evolve, or become extinct. Existence refers to maintaining the same identity. Evolution involves a change in identity through altered properties, and extinction is the complete obliteration of identity. These states reflect changes in an entity's physical and emergent properties. Depending on the degree and direction of change, an entity may visibly lose matter or inconspicuously lose emergent properties. In extinction, the entity's matter may become part of another entity or remain as fragments while its identity vanishes. Matter is typically rearranged without significant loss during evolution, resulting in new emergent properties and an altered identity. Identity is preserved only through existence, signifying stability in both matter and its holistic properties. Agency of change and existence. The existence of any entity, living or non-living, depends on a delicate interplay between agencies of change and agencies of existence, both internal and external. Agencies of change refer to the forces or influences that instigate transformation, while agencies of existence are the mechanisms or conditions that stabilize, sustain, or restore an entity against such changes. External agencies of change originate from the environment, encompassing physical forces, chemical reactions, and biological interactions. For non-living entities, these changes often dictate their fate, as their existence is primarily at the mercy of external conditions. A rock endures until it is worn away by wind or water, with no internal mechanism to resist or adapt. In this case, the onus of existence lies solely in the stability or benign nature of the environment. Living systems, however, transcend this dependence by possessing internal agencies of existence, dynamic mechanisms such as repair pathways, regulatory networks, and adaptive strategies. These enable life forms to resist, reduce, or even reverse changes imposed by external forces. The internal onus of existence, unique to life, allows organisms to actively preserve themselves despite environmental stringencies, highlighting life's extraordinary ability to self-regulate and persist. In essence, the balance between agencies of change and agencies of existence defines survival. For non-living entities, external agencies dominate, making their existence passive and contingent. In contrast, living entities demonstrate an active onus of existence, leveraging internal capabilities to navigate and withstand the relentless flux of external change. Life, therefore, embodies a remarkable ability to sustain itself, illustrating that existence is not merely enduring change, but mastering it. Here I propose 5 laws concerning the existence of any given entity, both in an instant and over time, from a philosophical perspective, perhaps also a biological one. We shall explore the laws in terms of existence in the given instance and their existence over time. The law of stability. An entity exists only if cohesive forces outweigh the disruptive forces. The law of stability posits that the persistence of an entity is contingent upon a delicate equilibrium between the formative forces within the entity and its environment, which must outweigh the cumulative deformative forces. The existence of any entity at a given instant is shaped by 2 fundamental forces, formative forces and deformative forces. These forces may arise internally within the entity and externally from the surrounding environment. Formative forces are those that preserve the integrity and continuity of the entity, and the stronger these forces, the more stable and enduring the entity's existence. In contrast, deformative forces work towards the degradation of the entity, gradually breaking it down over time. The balance between formation and degradation is crucial for the entity's persistence. The formation process involves constructive mechanisms that build and maintain the entity, such as the synthesis of molecules or cellular components in biological systems. Degradation, however, refers to processes that break down or disassemble the entity, such as metabolic breakdown or the wear and tear caused by environmental factors, whether physical, chemical, biological, or social in nature. These processes are central to the entity's stability. The interaction between the internal properties of the entity and external environmental influences determines its overall stability. An entity's ability to maintain its existence relies on its internal formative processes and the environmental conditions surrounding it. Favorable environmental factors can strengthen the formative forces, such as optimal temperature or supportive interactions with other entities. Conversely, harsh conditions, competition, or predation contribute to the degradative forces. Consider the case of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, in which formative internal forces include the innovative use of reinforced concrete and steel, along with a central core that houses elevators and services, providing structural strength. The building's design incorporates steel reinforcement to support immense vertical loads, stabilizing the structure. Deformative forces such as weight, height, wind-induced vibrations, and thermal expansion are mitigated through advanced materials and engineering solutions, ensuring minimal distortion. External formative forces, such as high winds and seismic activity, challenge the building's stability. Burj Khalifa's aerodynamic shape and damping systems are specifically designed to resist wind forces. Informative forces, including the desert environment and soil conditions, were critical in determining the building's deep foundation, ensuring stability and safety against environmental challenges. Burj Khalifa stands because the cumulative formative forces exceed well beyond the deformation forces. This concept becomes particularly evident in contexts like double-stranded DNA's structural stability, which was described earlier. Consider DNA, with its two strands held together by numerous hydrogen bonds, forces for formation, and electrostatic repulsion between phosphates in the backbones of the strands, forces for deformation. For DNA to remain stable, the attractive forces from the hydrogen bonds must outweigh the repulsive forces. The environment surrounding DNA also plays a crucial role. For example, an increase in temperature can break hydrogen bonds, reducing the attractive forces and leading to denaturation of DNA, separation of the two strands. Conversely, the presence of cations can reduce the repulsive forces between phosphate molecules, enhancing DNA stability. Alkaline conditions, however, can disrupt hydrogen bonds, reducing internal cohesive forces, potentially causing denaturation. This example illustrates that the existence of a physical entity, such as DNA, depends on the equilibrium between forces that promote formation and those that cause deformation. In general, most of the materials in the universe have higher intermolecular forces that account for their existence in that instance.